March the 3rd, 2020. Anybody hear me?
No.
All right.
Sir,
At
yes, sir.
5:31 p.m. Now, let me call the roll. Councilmember Nakamura.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Linda Moon.
Here.
Councilmember Wheat.
Here.
Mayor is here. Councilmember Dodson. Here. Councilmember Kelly.
Here.
Councilmember Rigney.
Here.
Great, we're all here. We can now go. Items on the agenda. The first one is State Highway 26 median and right-of-way project update.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we are gonna go through a project status update. We have Aaron and David with Mesa back again tonight, and they're gonna lead you through their presentation if they wanna come on up. Just provide a brief introduction. Thought it'd be a good idea to touch base. I know we've talked about it a lot, and most folks have a general idea of where we're at in the process, but it's always good to circle the wagons every now and then and provide a status update, as well as get a little bit of feedback on a few questions we had for you this evening. So with that, we will go ahead and jump right into it. I think you should be, yep, I think you should be queued up.
Mayor and Council, it's great seeing you all again. I want to give you a brief update on the project, the different packages, schedule, also when you start to see some activity out on the corridor. So we promised to keep it brief. Each presentation we're getting less and less slides, so we've been warned. This is only about 7 or 8 slides.
We do our best.
Yes. Let's go. Is it, you click to the right, is that how you?
Oh,
Slam it.
you may have to do control, what is it, Control P? Or Control?
It's not complicated.
Oh, something.
If you wanted to,
Or remote, you know.
Control L?
I know what you're talking about.
Here we go.
All right.
So, brief summary, back in December, we reviewed just the overall design of the corridor, the street lights, also the gateways, and so this is just kind of a visual summary of what y'all reviewed, and what we're basically working on right now is on the corridor package. We're working the project into 3 packages. Obviously, there's the street light, the light poles, that's they're in the middle of fabrication right now. This is the corridor. What we've defined as the corridor package, that's basically your medians and your parkways. So if you remember the design of the stone slab planter walls along the median, the 6 and 8 inch large shade trees, and then also the ornamental trees out on the side. And then also the planting palette that we reviewed with y'all. The gateway package, we haven't really focused on this at all since December. The main goal is on the corridors, get the package out, get the pricing in, and then go through, get some feedback on the gateway designs here in the spring. If you recall, we had the 3 different options on the Creekside Tower. We had the Main Street, 2 different tower designs there, and then also what we call the Pastoral Gateway on the north. And so this is just the same representation we saw last time. So overall, within the 3 packages, what we've broken this out on the top, you see the corridor, hardscape, and landscape. We've really focused, we're at about a 50% construction document package right now. We'll be submitting that to the city here about the next week. So we really focused on all the hardscape you saw in the medians, and the parkways, the wall design.
We haven't talked about the height of the buildings yet.
Right, yeah, we haven't touched the gateways.
This is
Gateways,
all parkway design.
yeah, all we're focused on right now is the stone, the median walls,
Okay.
the shade trees.
Oh,
and
it's
then-
in the.
But you have the
It says
estimates
90
again.
foot tower, that's why we're
We've
throwing off.
required that because we require them to be looking at that as part of the overall
cost.
budget. And that's why you went with the highest, that's the
Gotcha.
worst case cost
Okay.
scenario.
So in December, what we did was we took the whole 3 miles, we broke it up into packages, and so we defined, there are certain areas near the gateways that we know when that package comes out, last thing we want to do in the corridor design is install landscape and hardscape, and then when we come in later and do the gateways, we mess it all up. So that's why you'll see the dollar amounts are a little bit different. What we did is with some of those edges in the corridor design that was near the gateways, we just said, let's just defer that. So when we build the towers, we do all that hardscape together, so you don't have this mismatched look. And so what we've looked at here is the column on the left is your numbers we looked at back in December. And so, short story, where we're at right now on the 50%, we updated our cost opinion, about $400,000. Our cost opinion is about $400,000 less than what we projected before.
Say that one more time.
About $400,000
Okay,
less.
okay.
So what we just showed this at is your corridor hardscape and landscape, what you looked at back in December with where it's at right now. The gateways, $70,852 and $600,000. Those are those numbers that before we showed in the corridor number. But now we've deferred that, because that might be like the flat work at the base of the tower. Well, we don't want to do that now. So Short story, all your numbers on the gateways design, we haven't touched it. But what we're looking at is the corridor design at the 50%, about $400,000 less. That's just showing right now we're carrying about an $800,000 contingency, where we had about a $400,000 contingency. So there's still a lot of details we're getting worked through and so forth. And so, short story, every time we submit this, when we submit the package here in about a week and a half, we'll update the cost opinion again. The next submittal, so we always have a very fluid and dynamic document. Pricing changes every week, and so our goal is to minimize any hiccups or gotchas as we go through this. And so that's the kind of the quick summary on this package. Lighting package, we just put that down there at the bottom. That's the third package that we're talking about. Obviously, that one's the farthest along because it's already been in the middle of fabrication. I think Ray's gonna give you more of a detailed update on that package, but they're about 50%, I'd say about halfway through on fabrication of the light poles. And there hasn't been any differences on that. There was about a $35,000 option added for adding outlets to the light poles along the core area where we have the banner arms. So we also we added outlets on those poles so you can plug in lighting for your decorations and so forth.
So the banner poles are not added in there?
Banner poles are in your original contract.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
right.
so they are,
Yeah.
okay.
Every light pole, yeah.
Outlets, it's just the outlets.
Yeah, those light poles, which was they were basically the poles along the middle, near Main Street. Whatever pole had a banner on, we added outlets to those as well.
Okay.
That way you can decorate for Christmas if you want to.
Yes, excellent.
How many poles have those?
I'll have the final count on the number that have the banners. We could go back
I
and
mean,
forth.
how
Yeah.
far up and down the corridors, what I was kind of wondering. We'll have
I'd say probably a third of the
Okay.
corridor.
Yeah, I want to say that I'd have to check, but I think it's Hall Johnson to, I believe Glade.
Glade,
or-
probably.
Yeah. It's the downtown core, but it's somewhere right around there with that being the limit.
They
I
have
can't remember if it's
outlets,
Church
is
or
what
Hall
you're saying.
Johnson.
Yeah.
Is that again?
Have
Have
a
the
banner arm or
arms,
have an
correct.
outlet.
Okay.
Why did the contingency go up that much?
That's how we're just showing right now,
Just balance it out.
Pushing it.
Yeah, the remaining money, the contingency, what you'll see here, 431,830, that $400,000 is just, now that we have the plan more refined at a 50%, we have a little bit better quantities, length of the wall, we counted up all the shrubs and the trees, all those quantities start to get more refined as we get closer into the details. So we just have a little bit tighter numbers, we update the
Okay.
unit prices.
Okay.
The other thing too is, we talked about this as we get being more refined in these numbers and getting tighter and tighter. There may be an occurrence where we actually either keep the contingency or raise it, because we're experiencing, cost, bidding time or whatever that seems to be uncomfortable. And so I think you've had contingencies in the 12% and, up to 20%. And 20% contingency sounds like a lot, but, in this climate with some of the bidding, if we can raise the contingency through savings like we did here, we're gonna keep trying to do
Yeah,
that.
the main thing I wanted to understand, it was, you
Savings.
got better numbers, they went
Yeah.
down, so you just contingency went up. to-
Contingency
Yeah.
to balance it out.
As the number
I like
gets,
that better.
as the number gets tighter,
Yeah.
numbers might come down
Okay.
when one week
That's all
might
I
go
wanted
up.
to know, yeah.
So schedule, just a summary of the three packages. We have the lighting package at the top. As you'll see, that started in January when y'all authorized that contract. They're in the middle of fabrication right now. Contractually, they're obligated to be done, I believe it was the end of June.
Yes.
So we anticipate you'll probably start seeing light poles going up. Our guess is probably May, maybe end of April. There's some work they have to do ahead of time. They have to add some new light pole bases. They have to modify one half of the poles to accommodate the streetlights. You'll start to see activity here probably in the next week. Ray
Yeah,
said
they
were
started that
starting.
already. We saw that today with some additional cones.
So you're saying they'll be finished by June?
Yeah, contractually, the date of the contract, I believe, was it June 30th?
I
June or July?
Yeah, I'd have to go back and double. We have in here right now going through August.
Yeah, that includes
But
kind of the
that's
final
the kind of
punch
final
list.
punch list and everything, and I think there's about a month or so.
Those punch lists will go quick.
The Colleyville, what we call the corridor package, that's the one, the medians, the parkways, that's what we've really been focusing on. And our goal here is, we're submitting the 60% here, March 13th. Staff to review, did feedback, then we start refining that. The 90%, we'll start finalizing the irrigation design, the lighting design for the tree lights, et cetera. Ultimately, we have the plans done end of April, and about a month, about 5 weeks of bidding this project out. So the bidding will be starting end of April, going through early June. So when we get numbers back first week of June, we'll have a better idea of where the overall with the gateway feedback. We have some idea of how to fold in the gateway design. Then we see construction starting probably about a month to mobilize the contractor, and so you'll start to see construction starting in the corridors in July. And ultimately, that package is really two complex pieces. One is all the hardscape. That's what you'll see first when they do the stone slabs. There's some seeded concrete. There's some flat work. So that's what you'll see up front. Once they get the hardscape in, they'll start coming with the landscape at the very end. So ultimately, we have in there construction going from July through April. The last 4 months is going to be mostly landscape, which is actually the perfect time of the year to install your landscape. Late fall, early spring is the best time. And so that's also just the sequence. Usually that's what comes in at the end. You'll start to see activity out there, more hardscape this summer in June and July, which works really well with the lighting as they start getting out of the corridor on that. So our goal on the corridor is you have construction July through April. But once we get pricing back on June, what we wanted to do on the gateways is probably about March, probably April, start to talk to you all about design feedback about the towers, the different options, start to really what we finalize the concept and the program. So that way, when we get pricing back on June, we can fold in, we have 2 of the 3 contracts finalized. We'll know what the remaining budget dollar amounts are. We can go through then and wrap up the design, June, July, August on the gateways. And so construction-wise, you'll want the gateways to start to come in towards the end. And so you'll see that the red bars at the bottom are your construction schedules. The top one is your lighting package. So you'll see there's a little bit of overlap on the
There you go.
screens. There's some overlap on the second package. So as lighting's about halfway done, we'll start to come in on the corridor. Then you'll see when we're about 2/3 of the way down on the corridor package, the bottom red bar is then the gateways. And so we're trying to time it where there's the appropriate overlap. You don't have contractors on top of each other. There's 3 miles to work through, so there's definitely areas we can stage it appropriately, but also try to get this thing done in a timely fashion too. So I think the gateways, what we'll look at is getting some meeting with you all here next month, start getting some of that design feedback. So that way in June, we hit it running on that package. And that package for construction, doing the construction documents, we have there from June and going out to bid in November. And that contract will be mobilizing then first of the year.
I'm very concerned with this extending that long.
It looks like about a year and a half, is that correct? Did we initially say about approximately a year? Isn't that what we
We
initially
thought
said?
we were
Yes.
dealing with a year.
And, well, part of the problem is that we broke out the median work from the vertical elements. And the reason we did that was because there was concern that if we bid them both at the same time, first of all, we'd have to delay the median to wait for them, but the cost could result in a situation where the bids came in higher than anticipated, and now we're having to amend the entire project rather than pieces. And so this plan is to allow for the construction to take place in phases, but it also lets the median work go in first, which is the priority, and then the second aspect, the vertical elements, then can come forth, and if there has to be changes to them to adjust financially, we can do that without having to wait for the median work to take
Exactly.
place.
Part of that strategy was to make sure y'all had flexibility, where if for some reason the median and right-of-way bids come in extremely high, you're not already locked in on the vertical elements. You've got some ability and some time to flex there.
Okay.
So when you'll work on the median, will there be just sections at a time? That way there won't be cones everywhere like there are now?
Yeah, I would anticipate it's gonna be on trades, right? So when we're doing the stone block, they're gonna come in, they're gonna do it along, so they'll be doing sections at a time. They're not gonna be
Okay.
mobilizing in 3 spots and doing the stonework, and they'll be really doing along in more of a linear along the corridor,
Good.
based on trades, yeah.
Because that's been a major issue.
I know.
As you know.
I assume we have flexibility since it's a private company doing it as opposed to the state, so they don't have, because there's areas now that haven't been touched for weeks, that are still coned off.
Months,
Yes.
Months, yeah, I was being nice.
And that is definitely a benefit to the project. One of the challenges is you're gonna have this phased-in construction going on. And so you'll probably have them come through, like he mentioned, with the stonework first. And so they may have a section that is under construction, and then they may do the whole corridor with stone, so they may move along and then come back later and then add the landscape elements. And so you may have different times, but the
Right.
closures will be more isolated and they'll be more limited.
Good.
And they won't be on both sides. They'll be
Right.
more limited to the area. But that's something that has to be negotiated with the contractor.
Right.
You know, once you
Well,
bid those
and
jobs.
that's very important to me,
Yes.
because our citizens have put up with this, and they've been wonderful about it, but we really need to concentrate on making that priority for them to move those cones as quick as they can, because it's gone on way too long.
Yes, no, absolutely, we totally understand the
Please do.
sensitivity. And so when we go to, when we get to that 90% construction document, we start generating all the contract forms. The schedule, the sequencing, the logistics is gonna be something we'll work out with staff and make sure it's spelled out, because there's a lot of different ways to do it, and there's gonna be an appropriate way that's really best for y'all and your citizens. So we'll make sure that that gets built into it.
Thank you.
The nice thing about the gateways is it's really isolated to 3 spots, right? And 2 of your 3 gateways have side streets, so it's gonna be a little bit less of a you know, you have a 3-mile corridor, but at least your gateways will be isolated to those areas should you choose to do all 3, so.
When we talked about the designs of the medians, I know we had said, these are ideas of plantings, but these aren't necessarily finalized. When are we gonna have that? I'm not expecting it tonight, but when are we gonna have that discussion?
The plant, like the actual plant palette,
Yes.
that's really the focus.
Yeah, that's
right
part
now
of the
on
60%. So where we're at right now is we've got the plant palette into the project with plant symbols, and we're going through and we're tweaking some sections as appropriate as we're developing the grading. But as the 60%, we get to that, which right now is around, I think, the 16th of this month. That's when y'all will be able to see that in its entirety. As well as with some of the grading, as we've been able to apply the grades to the heights of the walls to check that. So it's a more comprehensive look, elevationally and in plan.
Councilmember Reed, if that's something you think the council would like to have more of a discussion and update on when we come back and have the conversation about feedback for the gateways, we can include a bit of a conversation about that to make sure everyone's good with it.
Take a little bit.
I am too.
Yes.
Absolutely.
We can even do that again, and every time, having these updates more frequently is not a problem, and also having the updates to the financials along the way as well. Because we want to make sure that when we get to the bidding, at our construction estimates are updated so that we have a real idea to compare our bid prices against what we projected. Because then that will set the tone then going forward to the next stage.
Will we be maintaining these ourselves, or will we be hiring a contractor to do that?
We're gonna initially hire a contractor. We've talked about actually including in the bids at least a year or 2 of maintenance.
Okay.
So that the plant warranty and the,
Yes.
you know, the initial stages, especially with the trees,
Okay.
are underway. But long-term, we're probably gonna contract that. We'll bid that out.
Okay, good.
Multi-year
I was just
contracts.
curious.
We'll have a thick section just about the maintenance, where you can have, what we can bid as alternate for year 1, another year, 3rd year, what that menu of prices will be, so you have a lot of options to pick.
Perfect.
So from a material design, we've been vetting the hardscape for a while. David's been at the quarry many times, he's, you know, looked at the stuff, so we have a great grip on that, the availability. The big component, especially on a streetscape, is your trees. And so as you recall, one of the priorities was we spent a little bit more on the larger trees, the 6 and 8 inch. So what we are proposing is, we don't want to go all through this process, and then when landscape starts coming in, kind of the middle of this red bar, just hope on what's available at that time. Sure. You know, just right now, you know, the plants that we're looking for were planted eight years ago. And so the market's been very strong, there's a lot of demand out there. We don't want to be at the risk of what's available then. We want good quality, good size. So what we're actually working through right now is talking with different nurseries and growers. The option we'd like to bring forward to you here in the next month or so is to actually either contract with those growers to hold that material, go out there, physically tag them all, make sure that we own those, we control those, so that way we're not sacrificing quality then, you know, in January on what's available. So we're working through, we've narrowed down the species for the streetscape. The shade trees are typically a type of elm tree, and David, you've been.
Yeah, we're looking at doing a Princeton American elm and then the cedar elm, very strong performers, good for the region and for the appropriateness to the concept. And we're probably going to get it from multiple nurseries, just given the quality in which we're looking for, and also, like Aaron said, with the demand. So right now we're coordinating that, and then we're going to put together a package of here's what nursery A wants, here's what nursery B wants in terms of, say, like a down payment and whatnot. Here's the schedule, maintenance, and with the goal being to lock that down. That way, when the project comes, we know what we have and we can react accordingly versus.
And it might be 2 nurseries, but the goal is to secure that day 1. We're not worried about the shrubs and ground covers. That's very, you don't have to wait 8 years for that stuff to grow. But
Yeah.
there definitely is a strong demand for some large and nice quality trees. So we're wrapping up that, but we've been working with staff on trying to bring something forward here probably over the next month on
So if the
securing those
council's
trees.
comfortable with that strategy, then we'll bring forward that probably one of your upcoming council meetings.
That's good.
Yeah, that would be our recommendation.
Go ahead.
Two questions.
Yeah.
The design timeframe for the gateway seemed longer than the medians, is that right?
Yeah, the gateways involved architect, structural engineering, a lot more components than the corridor. The hardscape's a little bit less intense. There you really have it's almost 4 different buildings, 4 different structures. So we do have an architect engaged on that, so it is a little more intense just on the design side with those components.
Because I'm with George, the quicker the better. The other comment is just details on this. That last the construction summary, you don't have in the 3 lighting, corridor, and gateways, it doesn't say, it keeps saying document package. When I first looked at that, that was confusing.
Okay. Yeah.
It could say lighting package
Yeah, I was
construction
concerned.
or
Sure.
corridor document package construction with construction being light. I'm
Yeah.
just a concerned citizen looking at this
Yes.
would be confused. I
Yeah.
mean,
No, because I'm confused.
So it just.
Yeah, we just wanted to summarize this. The
Yeah.
red is really what you're going to visually see out there. And
Right.
the idea is,
Yeah.
one, we're overlapping as much as we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, no, and I think that's important to have that
Yeah, we
summarized.
change
It's
the
just
Just
making
change
sure
it
the
to
words
say
are clear, that's
construction,
the
yeah.
construction
We'll do.
phase, yeah.
We'll
Yeah,
do.
back to the timing thing, I want to make it clear what he's trying to say is that we can wait for everything to come in and then it take a year to do, or we can go ahead and get started now and do the processes. It'll seem like it's longer, but really and truly, we're already finished with one thing to get it started, but just the meetings, let's get it done. It looks like it's stretched out, but really and truly, it's not.
Understand.
Well, and the
We
fear-
just need to be careful, that's all.
And the flexibility was
absolutely. We
key,
discussed it.
because you needed the ability to change direction a little bit, and the only way to do that is to not get too far into it. And so that's why they were trying to protect
Right,
that
I think it's
option.
great that we're breaking this out, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no,
I think it's a
that's
good plan.
wise approach.
So I th-
Get started, get going.
Our goal, we're happy with these updates as often as possible. Definitely we see in April and May, work with you all on gateway design aesthetics, get that figured out, finalized. So then we run into the detailed design then as we get the bids back on the corridor. So that's the worst case you'll see us by then, but we're happy to come back as often as you all like to see on these updates.
We'll see you next Tuesday.
Okay.
Just kidding.
2 Tuesdays.
You mentioned concrete. The concrete will be laid in the narrow sections, is that it?
There's some areas in the medians with, let me see if I have.
Yeah,
that.
it's on that first image. So the concrete paving is going to be, part of it's going to be in the narrow, a lot of it's going to be in the
Sides.
wider, as this seated band you see
So
here.
concrete right here.
That's pressed?
Yes, it's a seated
Yeah.
aggregate.
The feedback on that versus it's decomposed granite look, you don't have the mess, the maintenance, but it gives you
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
Yes.
No, I like that.
The other question I have for that is, will you be pouring a concrete base underneath your stone for movement, or you think that your compaction's gonna be heavy enough to where the stone is staying?
The stones are heavy, they weigh about 1,000 pounds a linear foot, but we are going to go with a road base, like an aggregate road
Okay, so
base,
you will-
to help stabilize it. So there will be a structural base underneath it.
So there'll be some drainage. That would be an issue, right?
Yeah, we are looking at
Just keep
drainage,
it
but
from
as drainage, as we're looking at drainage, there's gonna be a lot of sheet flow.
Sure.
In terms of pitching from the back of curb.
They're talking about the base under the stone,
I
will be like a
understand.
road mix.
Are we
Yeah.
gonna have it
Keep
to
it
where it leaves all of that slickness on the road? You know how the section of the road
The
up there
washout
by John
plan?
The washout,
McCain, whatever
yeah.
you call it? What do you call that? When it,
That's
Drainage off of it.
when it sits in the road and it gets, what do you call it?
Algae.
Yeah, all of that. You know what I'm talking
It's the
about?
runoff junk from the interior.
It
that
stays
goes
so
to the-
wet
from-
and
yeah.
stuff grows, and that's what you're talking
Every
about.
time
Right.
they sprinkle, every time they irrigate, the water just comes off.
Flows into the street.
you know.
Plus,
And then
if you
it-
look, they're crowned. These
Yeah.
aren't so crowned.
Yeah,
These will retain more water.
Right, these will not be as crowned, but also with the irrigation requirements for the plant palette that's selected, the irrigation's gonna be less frequent. But that'll be something we consider as we go
Good.
through it in terms of where we put the
Please.
heads, trying to put closer and how we actually irrigate, to where there's not overspray for sure, but in terms of seepage and whatnot, that's something we'll consider
So
as
we
we
have
go
a
through the
section on the
irrigation.
first phase on 26, if you look at it going out of town, going north.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah, I know
right
where
past
you-
John McCain, it's very bad.
Right by the cleaners and
Yeah.
cleaners.
Yeah.
Liquor store there.
Yeah, the liquor store.
Look at it, because it's horrible, and
Okay.
I want to make sure we don't have that.
Yes, just also the irrigation, even the hardscape we're doing inside the median, you don't want to have that where you have, the spray hits the stone block, and
Right.
you have these weird stains,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
so
Right,
definitely,
yeah.
the irrigation design it's not just, plopping heads down there, there's really a system of what's
Yeah.
appropriate in certain areas. It's really about the context.
Right, and I wasn't here when the last one was done, so I don't know the
That's
thought
good
process
feedback.
of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
That's good, that's a good point.
Just one last question real quick, I know we're trying to move on. Will our expert park person, Lisa, be watching as well, the way they do things to make sure it's satisfaction to her
Absolutely.
and also city codes and stuff?
The only concern, yes, and we'll definitely have to have some construction management by these
Okay.
guys as
I just
well.
wanna make sure that she-
Because they're gonna, the experts as far as making sure the installation is per the design as well. But Lisa's crew is gonna be in charge of any contract for maintenance.
Okay.
But because of the road conditions and, just the general safety and unique nature of this, it's probably gonna be a contractor that does the work
Yeah,
for us.
I agree, I
Under her
agree with
direction,
that.
of course.
I agree with that, I just wanted to make sure that she was watching what was going on.
Yes, and she's reviewed, actually, we had some great feedback on the on the
Yes,
30%
we did.
submittal about.
Very good at
about
what she
design.
does.
Okay, good.
Great.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Appreciate
We
it.
appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Ray's gonna tell us about 26th. Hey, I like that schedule, Ray. See that schedule?
This isn't his
Well, maybe they'll let you borrow
Ray
it.
just said it's about 10%.
See, they actually ran up the
Start dates on this
Not my
date.
fault, but we have no schedule.
Borrow their program, Ray.
We're trying to help you, Ray.
I appreciate it. I'll take any help. I can.
Okay.
We're coming.
All right. Mayor, council members, good evening. Ray Silveira, Director of Public Works. Wanted to provide you with an update on State Highway 26 project, the textile project. And let me go ahead and start. Just a quick recap on this project. This is 3.1 miles from John McCain down to Brown Trail. It's going to be a 6-lane roadway with curb medians and left turn bays. We had the reconstruction of Little Bear Creek Bridge, which is done. Reconstruction of 2 intersections, which was Oak Point and Tinker and Thompson Terrace in Maine were the ones that were reconstructed. We have the sidewalk all pretty much installed along the corridor. Here's what we were seeing earlier, the illumination and the landscaping has been taken off the TxDOT contract and placed into our hands. So we're working together with them, which is why you see the medians only with topsoil at this moment. That is pretty much their finished phase that they have. On the project status, phase 1 is complete. Phase 2 and 2A are completed. Phase 3 is completed. And we're all here at phase 4 now, where it's the finish line. As we got into phase 4, we were meeting with TxDOT towards the end of last year and early this year, trying to help them up whatever we can to get this project to the finish line. Originally, it started out with, we were gonna try to get everything from north of Hall Johnson to the north open, move those cones out of the way and activate those lights. We talked with TxDOT, they said they would be able to help us out with that directive. And so they were saying, hey, we're having some issues with franchise utilities being in the way, so if you can help us out with that, we would try to open those areas up. So we started working with them, meeting with all the franchise owners that we could and try to get that going. And we finally got most of the franchise owners to cooperate and to start moving their stuff. And so while that was happening, we decided, as a city, we were on the hook to coordinate with one of the subcontractors to get the backlit signs for all the intersections that say the street names, and for the opticons that are there for fire protection or emergency protection to turn the lights green whenever they're coming. When we made that call to get that coordinated, we found out that the sub was in a holding pattern because the GC and them are having some issues. And so they were trying to solve this out. And so at that point, we brought it up to the city manager and the mayor's attention, and we're gonna discuss that amongst you today. So what's going on is the sub-consultant Roadway is working for the general contractor, Jago, and they're having some bid item discussions as to, they have installed some of the bid stuff, but they can't get paid until all of it has been installed and turned on. And so the contractor is not happy with that, the subcontractor is not happy with that, and he's working with prices from back in 2016. So this has come to complete standstill right now as to finish the last leg of the mile here. And so we've been trying to help TxDOT whatever they need from us to get it going. But we're close to the spring 2020, which is right now in March, where in my mind we would be. So we're still stuck here in phase 4, as all the barrels that are out there cannot be removed until that permanent traffic signal is installed.
Even
That's
on
the
the
one in Hall
medians
Johnson?
that are done?
Even in the meetings that are done, there's Hall Johnson, the one at Tinker was the one we were gonna try to get going, but they can't get most of it installed and coordinated until they get the striping done, and they can't get that sub out there. So we have completed the construction of the center median is done. The permanent pavement at intersections has been done as well, so we're stuck here on the last 3. Granted that the landscape has been transferred over to somewhere else, to a different contractor, different contract. But we are working with TxDOT, trying to get them to get that dispute resolved, but it seems that they haven't gotten to that level or involved enough to get them going in that direction. Another component that they're facing is the sub-consultant is part of what they call the minority woman business enterprise. And so they have to have certain sub-consultants meet that percentage that requires them to have for minority-owned business. So they can't just fire this sub-consultant and get another one. They have to work with them. So they are at a standstill, trying to get this ironed out, and it's a matter of around $200,000 that the sub-consultant hasn't been paid to date.
Are there any penalties for, like, are we way past completion dates and there's no penalties in place? What do their contracts look like? Are there penalties there, or do we not know?
I guess unfortunately for us, but fortunately for the general contractor, he is ahead of schedule in Texas construction timeline.
Wait a minute, so
What's
general
schedule?
contractor's ahead of schedule,
Yeah.
but TxDOT's behind.
Just clarify real quick,
So-
right, just,
Yeah.
there's a contract between the general contractor, Jago, and TxDOT. Sure. And that contract is a milestone contract that provides for days per milestone. And so that TxDOT has to reconcile with the general contractor to determine at each milestone if they are ahead of the schedule, behind the schedule, and if they're behind the schedule, they pay a penalty up to 30 days, $3,500 a day. If they're ahead of the schedule, they can get an incentive up to $3,500 a day for 30 days. And so that's up to TxDOT. We've been part of that in very limited basis, and so that's TxDOT. Between the general and the sub, we're not privy to that contract. We've not seen that contract. And so I
So
would
we
not be able
could-
to answer any questions about the sub.
So we could sit here until they get this dispute, and we don't know how long. So do we have a way we can get someone involved?
So the only way we have is to go start at the top and go down.
Okay, let's do it.
And so I am now calling Min
Thank you.
daily, and I will call his boss.
Does he answer?
Yeah, well, he typically doesn't answer if he calls me back.
Oh,
But his
so
boss
he is
really-
communicating with
I
you.
really asked Min questions, but it's, and there was supposed to be a meeting, last time I talked to Min personally was last Friday, and he was supposed to meet with the contractors Monday. See, they went for 3 or 4 weeks without acknowledging that they even knew about this, so we told them about this. And so he was supposed to meet with the contractors Monday, that's what he told me. I said, give me an update on that. Called him today, haven't heard from him, asked for that update. I'm now told through our staff that that meeting is now tomorrow.
Meeting of whom, I'm sorry, Ming and,
Ben, TxDOT and Jago, the general to discuss this contractor issue that Ray described.
right.
And so, but we've, they've sit on the hands for 4 or 5 weeks. And so there's not much we can do internally. I mean, we can't even get information out of them. And so putting pressure on them from talking to their bosses, him and his boss, and our political contacts, which is Geo and our elected officials and Gary, is probably the route we're gonna have to go, because they don't like to hear from all those people. And so I will,
I was just in Austin last week, and I asked a TxDOT representative,
yeah.
and he was gonna connect me with a guy that knew a guy that knew something, and then left, didn't give me a card, nothing. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
where we're at, but I do want some clarification on the barrels, because I know they're not all by traffic signals. So where they're finished, they're saying they will not remove the barrels, where they're finished on the medians.
Right. They will not remove the barrels until the final striping's in place, and that's all contingent upon the intersections being.
And
So the way this works, the way Wanda said that it's in 4 phases. Each phase is a traffic plan, right? And so we're into the phase where it's a traffic plan, so they want, until they get the signals done, that's why we're harping on the signals so hard. And I'm prepared to, if they don't get this resolved, say, fine, open it with temporary signals. The roadway is done.
Exactly.
Other than
Right.
those, in fact, I think all the roadways done, they haven't, at a couple intersections, they don't have sidewalks in.
Yeah, little
Right, there's a
sidewalk
couple of
boards.
them are still working through.
So that's the strategy that I think we're gonna take, and I told Bobby a while ago, if we, what can we do? We can kind of mount a telephone campaign and get a lot of people
Sure.
on the phone talking to these guys.
That's what we have to do.
And put external pressure on them. We have no internal way to do it. We've tried, You know, and that's why I'm really, every time I talk to men, I say, what's the schedule? I want to know, I don't care, these issues are your issues, what's the schedule? We can't get any information.
Well, it's not fair to our citizens.
No,
It's
it's
been
not.
going
It's
on
ridiculous.
and on and on, and, you know, and it reflects very bad on the city of Colleyville,
Yes.
because,
Right.
you know, everyone doesn't understand how this works, so therefore, they get very upset with the city. And we've got to do something, because this is getting ridiculous.
And the reason why they can't move the barrels is because they have to set the lighting to restripe the road. All this gets restriped, repinned, and they can't do it until they get the lighting set. So that's why they won't move the barrels, or else they'll be curb bumping, so.
And when are they late? Like, how much longer do
Yeah,
they
that's
have
the-
before?
Well,
What's the schedule? That's what I
Right,
keep
so what's
asking.
the, right, we
schedule?
never
They're
get a
already
clear
late
answer
in
on
my
that.
mind.
And TechStop
Well,
has
there's-
released that, yeah.
The
December,
days
right?
that are part of that milestone
Yes.
are in the contract. So each milestone has a set number of days. The question is, when did the
Counting.
clock start?
Right.
When
Who's
did the
counting?
clock finish? And what days in between were considered outside the realm of the contract because they were caused by something that had nothing to do with the contractor?
And we've
so
not been privy to most
We
of
don't
that.
move either one of those
But
variables.
those are all details. What I asked for is that what the fellows before us showed us was a Gantt chart.
Right.
Showed high-level task and the
Absolutely.
timing. That's all, that's
Right,
what we
that's
need to
not
see.
asking a
What-
lot.
how- You know, and those things change over time. So
Sure.
if something happens, you change the Gantt chart, but you should know what it is.
Yeah.
They won't give us that. I'm
Right.
very, very, very frustrated. It's terrible.
It's been years that we've been having that conversation.
And our state representatives have
Yeah.
said that they were involved. They need to get back involved with this right now.
I called
because-
the
Yeah.
representative's office and the senator's office this afternoon. And so I left a message asking their staff, chief of staff, to call me back and ask for help. So we've engaged them as well.
Good. If that doesn't work, then people need to start making those phone calls as well.
Yeah, and
Citizens
time,
need to start
time is
stepping up.
critical. As you looked at our other charts on our medium work that we need to do.
To
we're-
get
we're
started on
Bumping up to the dates that we start.
And for no reason. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no reason this should be delayed. This is
No,
done,
I'm
the work is
sitting
done.
still,
Right.
nothing.
Right.
It wouldn't hurt.
matter of fact,
And one question hadn't been asked, but's been discussed is, you know, it's not, the work is not being done because materials aren't here. So the things that have been ordered and are here, that need to be here to do the work. They're just not
That's not the
doing
issue.
the work.
So wait a minute, you're saying the materials are here? I
The street
misunderstood.
lights.
The
Yes.
lights, the
Lights,
signal
street-
poles are here. And
Yeah.
initially, we were told, when we noticed they weren't working, we were told that it had to do with utility conflicts.
The one on Hall Johnson specifically?
Well, and the
Several
issue
others.
was several,
Well-
and there were 3 or 4 conflicts out of, I think, 11 or 12 locations that they could go. And so our question was, why don't you work on the ones that are okay, and we'll work on the ones that aren't? And the mayor actually took his time to contact the utilities as well as Ray and other staff, and we got that resolved. And so we're like, great, this is wonderful. And then that's when we couldn't figure out why it didn't start then. Luckily for us, we have a contract with the same sub, and so one of our staff called the sub and said, hey, when do you want us to deliver the street signs? They go on your poles. So your poles are starting Monday. You know, every Monday we hear that. Which Monday do you want us to bring the signs? And that's when they shared with us this issue. Otherwise, we still wouldn't know.
So here's what, every week, Monday, there's a project meeting. ECDOT's supposed to be there, we're there. Every week, it gets reported to me, they told me, ask the schedule, well, they're supposed to start Monday. That happened like 5 weeks in a row.
Can we come to those meetings?
Well, I'm gonna start showing up at
Because
those.
I would like to, if we're squeaky wheels, I mean.
I don't think all of us need to go,
You
but
need more
Okay,
of us, let us
I don't
know.
know.
Yeah, let us know.
Honestly, I think your greater value would be reaching
Yeah,
out to
reaching out to
the
the
elected officials.
elected officials.
Because they're the ones that are more responsive and more
Happy to
engaged
do
in
that.
connecting with you, because they're the ones that know you, whereas
Yeah.
the consulting project engineer on the site is gonna say,
Yeah, it's a text dot issue. I mean, all these details of working with the contractors, their
It's all
contract,
text
we can't really have any impact. We gotta go to the top at text dot.
Well, it just looks bad on the city.
On those weekly meetings, we're meeting with a third party that represents TechStop, so we're not even dealing directly with TechStop.
You're not even coming.
That was nice, and I'm not even gonna mention that, but what he just told you, TxDOT does not even have a project manager in those weekly
Wow.
meetings. It is
TxDOT
atrocious.
It's worthless.
The TxDOT employee.
Yeah, they have
I
a-
directly
TxDOT
asked
employee,
TxDOT and they
That
didn't
guy's
even
not
know.
employed.
that's why I said they
Yeah,
don't have
that's
a
hard to.
TxDOT employee. they have a third-party consultant that shows up.
But he's not a project manager.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, they don't even have
Yeah.
a TxDOT employee that comes to the meeting.
I don't even want to,
So,
you know, from an engineering
Gary
standpoint.
Fickus, who is a
It's
Colleyville
terrible.
citizen, he's our county commissioner, who's been very good to us.
Yes.
He needs to hear about this.
Yeah.
Gio,
Gio.
he needs to hear about it. Beverly Powell needs to hear about it.
Yeah.
It's time to start being a
Let's get on
squeaky
them.
wheel right now.
Well, Adrian, can someone send us out their emails and their information so that we can all get on that? Because it's got to move.
We need clear and concise statements when those calls get made.
Okay,
Agreed.
that's fair.
Consistent.
We can give you,
Consistent.
we can give you a quick summary of kind of talking
Black,
points,
black,
what's
black.
going on.
Please do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Give us some talking points, we'll all reach out.
Thanks for digging into this.
Absolutely.
Very aggravating.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you,
Thank
Ray.
you much, Ray.
Because the citizens ask us nonstop, and it's,
Okay, Glade Road and Riverwalk Drive roundabout.
I feel like the roundabout gal lately.
You've been around about.
isn't there a song?
All right,
Straight
so
to
we're here
song.
tonight to have a very initial, first blush conversation and get some feedback from you all about the new roundabout planned for Glade and Riverwalk. So obviously, a lot of the other roundabouts were existing roundabouts that we talked about retrofitting with updated landscaping and public art. We've planned now the 2 other new roundabout designs, and this is kind of the last one on the docket for us to take a look at. Obviously, we're familiar with where this is at Glade and Riverwalk, but there's a street view, just in case you need a mental refresher. So the engineering team went ahead and put together just a basic rendering so that you can understand in general what that roundabout shape is gonna look like. This was just a mock-up of what, you know, the interior is. This isn't
I was
necessarily.
gonna say, they're gonna have to have some kind of railings.
Yeah, that's not a recommendation, but so at least again, you can have some.
Didn't even
Ditches,
notice.
what, 10
have
feet
some-
deep?
Yeah. have
What
some
size
context.
is that one compared to one of the ones in the city?
You know, I don't know if I've got the diameter
Oh, it hasn't
measurements
been
on
decided
that.
yet.
It probably has, I just don't know that I have that handy. Do you have one that you think is comparable?
Approximately, we won't hold you to it, exactly.
I think it's just maybe a tad smaller than the one at Pool.
Oh, okay.
So-
That's a pretty
That's
small.
small.
It's about, I mean, because you're the one at Pool has the 2 additional lanes when you're heading eastbound.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this one's just 1 lane each way.
So it's not gonna be as big as
it's
the
not gonna be as big at all.
McDonwell or the Cheeksbar, you know.
It's
It's
It's gonna be a smaller one.
Okay.
Okay, so
There's
definitely,
new
definitely smaller in
Well,
nature.
turn
I see
lanes
what you're
at all.
saying.
I don't have the actual
I'm
numbers
teasing
between
you, no, I'm
but-
totally teasing you.
There's not enough traffic to warrant a turn lane.
Right.
Okay. But again, just kind of for context, so going in with the mind that it's gonna be on the smaller scale of the ones we've talked about. I definitely want to share with you that we've got at least one citizen that's reached out to us on numerous occasions that has some pretty strong opinions that she wanted shared with you all about recommendations for the roundabout, so wanted to include those. The recommendations from that citizen include a statue of a boy and girl with a small waterfall. Having the boy jumping into the water with it splashing. He in particular should be chasing a goose.
It's kind of cute.
It should also include a beaver and a frog. The girl should have a butterfly net in hand and was desiring the focus to be kind of a playful feeling, emphasizing the water and the animals in the area. So some pretty specific feedback there to consider, but of course with it being, you know, there near Riverwalk, you know, at Riverwalk, and I think we're all familiar with the nearby geese that like to rest in that area. Could see some appropriate potential animal inclusion there. So potential directions that we could go, and I just put these up. I'm sure there's more, but just for conversation purposes to get the conversation going. We could do something with children interacting with nature, whether that's fishing, butterflies, playing in water. Based on the council's feedback when we looked at some of the other roundabouts, my sense is that perhaps the maintenance and cost of putting true live water or flowing water in there is not our plan. Okay, I'm seeing heads nod, all right.
I like it.
So we'll.
I actually like it.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I like it.
Is
I
this
mean,
worth
that's me.
No
I think it's
water.
pretty, I just
I
don't
like
think
it.
we want the maintenance.
Doesn't mean
We don't want the maintenance.
That's fine.
Okay, so that's definitely a point of discussion we'll have to consider. And then wildlife. And so I did a quick search on just some of the known bronze art manufacturers.
Favorite sites?
Yeah, just
Yes.
the go-to ones that we do our research on. There's really not that many out there. Just to give you a collage of just what I found. Now, certainly, you know, if you had something very in particular in mind, it could be custom, but I know we try to do more off the shelf so it's not as expensive. We don't have to put any bronze statues, but again, just trying to put food out there for conversation. Yeah, so the pandas were a joke, just because we thought it was funny that it was Jerry, Mark, and I. Not actually recommending putting pandas out at the roundabout, but certainly
Jerry to the left?
there's a, Well, yeah, I put them in order, right?
Kinda
I'm
obvious, isn't it?
obviously the
Looks like the
smallest.
dad, say the dad. Adrian, I love these, and the one that I really like is the one with Carol's jumping over the little boy
Me
right
too.
there.
Okay.
My
But
favorite.
I read that in to incorporate the wildlife, the two geese right there, there could be one on each side watching those two kids jump.
Like they're gonna attack?
No, just. They did me whenever I walked
They
that
do,
far.
they're kind of aggressive.
But they could be
Little
just
bit.
sitting there watching them. I think that's
I
really
have
cool.
them in
That's
my
my.
backyard.
One,
favorite.
one concern I have about the geese is those are not wild geese. I'd like to see Canadian geese.
Oh,
Those are the
my.
only geese I found on
Right.
any of the sites, but we can certainly look for more geese.
Unless we want to pay $1 million for it.
Yeah, I don't wanna do that.
I don't want to pay $1 million.
I will see if there's other geese
Precision.
options, but in Googling bronze art geese, those were really the only kind of colored cheesy ones that I encountered.
I'd rather
I
see
like
the
the
wild
ducks.
ducks than the geese.
Okay.
On the
Because-
branch, is that the one you're
because
talking
I
about?
like the kids.
Because the geese are definitely domestic. I mean, that's my concern.
Okay, so more, so
Wild
look for
looking.
either better geese or substitute with ducks.
Ducks.
I personally don't like the geese with the kids, because I think geese are aggressive.
Okay.
And that looks like they're attacking the kids. That's me. I like the kids, they're cute.
I don't care one way or the other about the ducks, but I like the kids.
Okay.
Yeah, for me, I like a lot of that, but I think it has to have enough
It's gotta be
height
vertical.
to
Yeah.
be visible.
I just like even how the display is right there, the little cascading
I do
water that's
too.
running off of it. It just looks really pretty.
You could have the water come up the middle and go off two sides, so it goes off both north, east and west on Glade. And then you could even spill north on Riverwalk, you could do a three-way spill.
That'd be cool.
Is it going to attract geese?
Uh,
No, I'm not trying to be
That's a
silly.
fair
I mean,
question.
there's a
That's
lot of
truly
geese
a
over
fair
there.
question.
It's a
There's
very
just lot of
good
geese over
question.
there, and attracting them into
Oh.
another street may not be a good idea.
You have to, in
That's a
that
good
particular case,
point.
you have to treat that water, and that water would have to be pretty shallow, but you could put devices in there that have a way to repel that are not harmful to the geese. Keep in mind, because if they're in there, to get there, they're gonna have to cross traffic.
That's what I mean. I don't want to
so-
attract them to a new location that they
Yeah,
don't.
they mainly stay to that northern edge right there, down on the furthest pond, right by where I live.
And in front of the Justice Center.
Yeah, that's the ducks. So
I-
they kind of segregate each other from each
Anybody
other.
like that guy fishing
Hundreds
on
of
the
ducks.
The
boat?
fishing pole, I like that one. Those are my two favorites.
I think it's cute. I like the height of it. I agree.
Yeah.
But I think
I
we
li-
need to see the dimensions.
And I
to
like
see
the
if-
water. I think it's really pretty, but we just had that discussion, and I think based on the discussion we had at Westcote McDonald Middle School, I'm not a fan of it still, even though it's super attractive. I just don't like the maintenance of
The
it.
other thing that's kind of strange is,
4-7.
you wouldn't jump over when you have that drop off.
I hope
So-
not.
That's right.
So it is kind of,
It's a little
that's
bit
more in line with
unrealistic.
the kid fishing.
Yeah.
Right.
And so,
I would encourage my children not to do that.
I mean, you could,
but-
so you could have that up on an area that maybe has,
Ladder.
the dry riverbed type approach too, that would imply
All
water.
right,
there's no
put them in a
water.
desert,
I
put some
agree with you.
buzzards over the top of them. I've seen a few buzzards out there lately, so they're wild
Some
too.
hawks.
Okay, so
The
we like
fox
the
should-
kids.
and the fox should be there. He's right.
Right, so
I don't have a problem with the water, I'm just saying that spot where they're right at the
Yeah,
edge.
no, I'm teasing.
So I think mostly everyone was in favor of the leapfrog statue,
I think we're the fishing
children,
kids.
or the fishing, okay, all right.
Maybe we could look at the
Mayor
dimensions.
wants his eagle.
Okay, so which one do we narrow it down to?
Okay, so I think the two top preferences were the leapfrog, the children jumping, and then the fishing.
Oh, I like the
I
other
like the
fishing,
other
yeah.
fishing.
Oh, this
Yeah.
fishing, okay, I'm like,
And then an eagle on the back.
okay.
The eagle was going to the
And
Justice
pick up a
Center.
goose
By
and
a
fly away.
rainbow.
Okay, and
It's
then
coming
maybe
But
ducks.
you at least price the water as an option.
Okay.
If you can find some, what kind of ducks, George, do you want? American
Canadian.
ducks? Canadian ducks.
Geese.
All right.
Okay.
See, these are non-aggressive, that's why I like those.
I think like all aggressive.
It's a drake.
Well, you
They're-
can't
they're
hand them a piece
aggressive.
of bread and not expect them to come visit you.
That's why I don't like
Good, okay, we just kind of need to know what direction to go in, and we'll work up some options and bring this back to you.
Wonderful.
Adrian's gonna be an expert.
You know, it's fun, I learn something new every day.
Okay, agenda item 4, the agenda tonight, we have some things that are gonna take some discussion probably. So 5A and 5B both have to do with food on a cemetery, one is zoning and one is SUP. So FYI, when we get to those two, I'm gonna say we're gonna probably have presentations and discussion about both of them together at the same time. I'll probably run kind of parallel, simultaneous public hearings. We'll vote on them separately.
Richard? We don't have to make a decision tonight, right? They can be tabled.
It can be tabled, and I really expect those to be tabled. Personally, by the time we get through, there's too many issues to talk about. 5C is heritage forms. There'll be a lot of discussion on that one. Whether we table or not is, we could, depends on what direction, how that goes, and how much we need. I wanted enough discussion so we really understand what the issues are and what the questions are, but there's a ton of meat to talk about in that one.
Well, going back to the
Yeah.
prior, to the current
Yeah.
on the books.
2012, when it was voted on?
I think we need maybe a work session to just be able to compare it, because
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time on it, and it's
Yeah.
it's just hard
Yeah.
to get it laid out in my mind that.
Well, that may be a good suggestion,
Yes.
George. That may be a reason to table it. I think,
Well, I'm
I think as we
confused.
get into discussion, it could become clear
It's so
how
complex.
much there is
Yeah.
to talk about.
But I'm confused as to, we're doing an SUP on it. Hold on a minute.
How we doing? Zoning.
Zoning change.
The zoning's the first part. Oh, zoning's on that one, I'm sorry, I'm over on,
Right.
right,
Yeah.
okay. But it looks like we're doing the same thing that was done in 2012. I'm confused
Well,
as
no,
to-
there's it's different enough, it has to be a different zoning.
Yeah.
That's-
They could come in and done
It's the
what
same
was zoned, but they
category.
chose not to
Okay.
do that.
Well, I'll see out there then, because
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
see where.
And George has asked for the staff to review what was done in 12, and then, all that will be talked about.
Okay.
6A is that subdivision out there by Webb House, Lila Coley's land. That one, we're gonna need to table that. There's several things to talk about. The one that's really gonna dictate tabling, though, is using a piece of land that the city owns, and there's no right-of-way, there's no easement, and so that's not gonna fly. So there'll be a good bit of discussion on that one also.
There's
But
a
in the
lot
end, I think we'll table.
Drainage,
There's tons of questions. Again,
What's
we need to
drainage?
talk about all those so that we.
of course.
The railroad has
And
that
it-
property, don't
Just talking about how the subdivision would drain and the engineering and all that, that's normal
Yeah.
questions that
Yeah.
come up.
Okay, and so those are that's all I had on tonight's agenda, but that's kind of what I expect it's gonna be. It's not necessarily gonna be a short meeting tonight, I don't think.
There
It's
were
okay.
also updates at all your places, a couple of pieces of information for
Oh, yeah.
5A and 6A.
For additional items that came in, you
Oh,
have,
okay.
yes. And there's a letter that came in, the resolution about doing away with election, lady wrote a letter about that.
Do we have that here?
Yeah, it's in the envelope.
Oh, in the envelope.
I've seen it.
Yeah. Okay, anything else?
No.
Okay, then, I'm gonna close the work session closed at 6:25.